understand, if you have the UK as a map, okay, so I'm just going to,
Yeah. Interesting to see how he, he does it this time.
okay, so roughly the UK is a map, give or take, okay? Don't shout at me if it's not 100% accurate, okay? But obviously understand this point over here, where is this? Somebody want to tell me, where is that little point over there? Oh, let me go this way. Okay, where is this point here? Okay, where I've got the circle. Okay, this is obviously London, right? It's London. London, baby, yeah. Okay. Now, with London, obviously before Corona, we had seen property prices all the way through until I think it was October. Property prices had been going down for about 20 months. 20 months, property prices have been going down. And then as soon as they announced the whole Brexit thing and allowed certainty to come back in the market, so people went, okay, now we know where we're at. What happened to the housing market in London at that point? Anybody want to tell me? What happened to the housing market at that point? Okay, what happened to the housing market at that point? Boom. Okay, all of a sudden, property prices took an up. I think October was the first month in 20 months that it went up, and it was steadily going up and up and up and up really nicely since then. And of course, Corona struck and everything had a bit of a step back. Okay. Now, in exactly the same way, if you go a little bit further out, it's around the M25. Understand, guys, I live about here in Sevenoaks, somewhere around there. So I know this very well. I'm just off the M25. I'm literally 10 minutes tops off the M25. Okay. So there, property prices had been stagnant. Okay. They hadn't been moving for a period of time. And then you go a little bit further out. Okay. And you start to include places like Coventry, Nottingham, Derby, all the way around that sort of way, okay, Stoke, etc. Now those areas, interestingly enough, had been absolutely skyrocketing. So Birmingham would be included in that. Okay, those areas had been skyrocketing and had tapped out on the market to a point where it was starting to become unaffordable for people to buy there, and therefore it was becoming difficult to buy. Okay, which means you're slowly running out of demand. Supply is still there, but you're slowly running out of demand. Then you go a little bit further out. It includes a place like Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool. I know Liverpool's over here somewhere, but those sort of areas, okay, you get the gist. Now, those areas have been skyrocketing, okay? For those of you that are investing or based in the north, you will know that the property prices have been flying up there, okay? Now, let me just show you something really quickly, and then I'll come back to this. Okay, so if you take a look, London prices had been going down. Okay, where I was living had been leveling out. Where you go a little bit further, let me think of. Okay, so
name of the city you're talking about.
Yeah. So if you consider the market trend, okay, consider the market trend. London itself had been going down. Okay, that's why. So I was starting alongside of the loop. Yeah. Let me do this properly again. I knew where I was going. So London prices had been going down a little bit. Okay, so they've been going down a little bit for about 20 months. Where I live, it had been pretty flat. Okay, then Birmingham had been topping out. Okay, in terms of the market. So let me just confirm, people in Birmingham and Coventry and Nottingham and all around those places, is it fair to say that those places were becoming unaffordable and it was starting to get to a point where it was impossible to be able to find anything to buy because it was all overpriced? Is that a fair statement? And I know it's a fair statement because I've got mentees that are based up there and we looked over there many times. Birmingham, yeah, okay. So Birmingham was tapping out. Manchester was skyrocketing. Okay. You understand? So Manchester was skyrocketing. So what you got here is you got London, where I live, Birmingham, Manchester. Manchester flying up in value. Okay. Then you go one more circle out. And this is where you start to incorporate places like the north, okay, the northeast, the northwest. So you've got York and you've got Middlesbrough, as an example.
York isn't a good idea.
York isn't a good idea.
Example.
Okay, but if you take a look, anybody who's up in Middlesbrough will know that you're starting to get a lot of investors in the area and you're starting to see price increases. Starting to. Okay, and then you go even further north. Okay, and you include places like Newcastle. Okay, etc. And you'll notice that those areas the market hasn't even started moving yet. It hasn't even fully recovered from the 2007 crash. Understand that in the UK, the housing market works in cycles, okay? As you see, Tara, if you move a sec. Okay, so the housing market moves in cycles. This is the housing market. Moves in cycles, has ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs. That's how it works. Now, if you just follow the trend, and that's all we've done, all we're doing is looking at the numbers, okay? And we're just following the trend of the market. London is the epicenter of a pond. If you drop a pebble in the pond, the ripple rolls out. Now, all that's ended up happening is the ripple has happened and London's ridden the wave. Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. Okay, and London's ridden the wave. Where I live, the property prices have started to balance out. Birmingham is obviously topping out. Manchester is absolutely skyrocketing. Northeast is starting to skyrocket, and Newcastle has just started to balance out and starting to move. Now, what has happened to the London prices since the whole thing happened with Brexit? Since that was agreed, what happened to the London housing market? And this is where it gets really interesting. Okay, because you have this really nice curve, and then the London house prices were down here, but all of a sudden the Brexit thing comes, and now that's starting to move up. Since Brexit, it started to go up. Okay, as a matter of fact, it started to go up pretty heavily, very quickly. Now, the beauty about that is because whatever happens in London, the rest of the country inevitably follows. So this is historically what happens. Okay. Now, if London's starting to go up again, and it will snap back off the whole Corona thing, it's already proven. Try and book a viewing in London, it's 3 months. Okay. And you'll see that inevitably the rest of the country is due for a beautiful boom. Now, the fantastic thing is, places like the north of England haven't even gone up the first frickin' boom yet. Which means what? You can actually predict that the north of England, in all intents and purposes and in all likelihood, will be following not just one boom, but subsequently another boom. So that then tells you where do you think you should be investing in property. Okay, all we're doing is, this is all based on purely tracking numbers, historically tracking numbers. Now, we look at numbers, we look at demand, we look at all that stuff. All we're doing is tracking numbers. So where do you think you should be investing in property? Do you think you should be investing in property in places where the market's going down and now starting to go back up again? Or do you think you should be investing in property where the market's completely tapped out, investing in property where it's almost tapped out, investing in property where it's skyrocketing and there's loads of demand, investing in property where it's starting to pick up some speed, or investing in property at the bottom of the market? Okay. So interesting question, Chen. I will answer that in just a minute. Okay, but where do you think, in here, which of these do you think you should be investing in? This, for me, this is the important question, right? This is what we look at. Okay, this is literally what I look at. This is what I make my predictions and essentially all of our investment decisions on. You want to be investing at the bottom of the market or where it's starting to go up. So it'll be one of these two. Okay, one of these two. Now, ironically, that includes, so Blackpool's over here, which is why we like Blackpool, but we've started to see Blackpool is somewhere around here. It's starting to get more and more difficult to invest. However, all around Middlesbrough and all around Newcastle are really great little areas to be working in. That's why we suggest you invest up there. Okay, question from Chen, or how many years for the boom to reach there? Well, if I consider when I started investing in Manchester was probably what, 3, 4 years, probably 4 or 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Okay, 4 or 5 years ago, Manchester was about here. Okay, so let me just do something. Okay, so when I started investing, Manchester was about here, about 4 or 5 years ago. So that means in about 4 or 5 years, by default, 4 or 5 years, the Northeast should be somewhere around here. Now, the beauty about that is if you consider this cycle over here, if as soon as the Northeast gets up somewhere around there, in theory, the Midlands should be somewhere, okay, it should be somewhere around the bottom of the cycle because they are following the trend of London. Okay, so I would expect that somewhere between 3 to 5 years is where you see a movement from one point to the next. That's my belief, okay? So Birmingham in the Midlands, I'd say somewhere in around 3 to 5 years. That's probably going to be a great spot to invest again. because bear in mind, okay, Birmingham right now is over here. Okay, in 3 to 5 years, it'll be over here. Well, actually, I suppose won't be ready for that yet then. So it'll probably be a little bit further south. So it'll probably be on the outskirts of London. Okay, and then in a further 3 to 5 years, it would be here, which is where London was just before this. That's my estimates. That's my crystal ball. I look at the facts and figures.